All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Horn Takes podcast. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It's college football eve, folks. We finally made it. We've suffered through winter sports. We've suffered through a summer where all there was basketball on. NBA basketball at that. If you're an MLB fan, you've probably suffered for something by an MLB team. But here we are, just a single sleep away from college football. We've had a busy week at the beginning of this week. Couldn't do a show. Meant to do a show on Monday night. Couldn't get it done. So here we are on Friday, headed into the weekend. 8 days until college football for Texas. Number 8. A lot of good players wore number 8 at Texas. Really good player coming in this 2024 class that's going to wear number 8 for Texas. But when I see number 8, I can't help but think about Jordan Shipley and just the sort of amazing battle he had at Texas. It was a guy that got hurt multiple times early on in his career. And I don't think it set him back too bad because he had a really good collegiate career, an okay NFL career. By that, I mean he played in the NFL and he actually played and contributed. That's pretty solid, right? A lot of great plays at the University of Texas. A lot of really great plays against the Oklahoma Sooners by Jordan Shipley. I think the one we can all remember is Red River Shootout 2008. Oklahoma just scored. Game is still pretty close early on, obviously, but it's looking like Oklahoma's definitely got a hold of this game, and momentum was totally on Oklahoma's side at this point. And Jordan Shipley rips off a really long kickoff return for a touchdown. Got the Texas crowd right back in it. Took the wind out of the Oklahoma sideline probably a little bit. Definitely the fans on the other side of the stadium. Texas eventually goes on to win that game. That's back in the day when Texas and Oklahoma were both solid. Both really solid programs. I'm talking like nationally solid programs. Got a cool show today, I think. We'll see. Before we get to that, folks, I am 320 followers away from 4,000 on TikTok. So I appreciate all you guys that follow on TikTok. I cracked 100 on Twitter. Took me like 3 or 4 weeks. Actually, it probably took me a couple months, month and a half to get over 105. Twitter's hard, y'all. I'm still trying to find my niche on Twitter, but you can find me on Twitter at Horn Takes. You can find me at TikTok at Horn Takes. YouTube, where we're streaming live right now, you can find me at Horn Takes. So we got a week left. We'll talk. We're going to talk some preseason superlatives for the University of Texas Longhorn football team, and we'll talk a little bit next week about obviously the Rice opponent we got in game 1. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday at DKR. Excited about that. So let's get into it. Horn Takes podcast, preseason superlatives for the Texas Longhorns. We're offensive minded, so we'll start with offense. 2023 offensive MVP. I think it's got to be Quinn Ewers. I think the dark horse, and I'm gonna give my pick, and I'm gonna give a dark horse, and that's just my neat little way of giving myself a better chance of getting it right, folks. That's all that is. 2023 offensive MVP, Quinn Ewers. Dark horse, I think Jonathan Brooks. I think for Texas to be really successful this year, the running game is going to have to be successful. Jonathan Brooks is the starter. at the running back position, most likely. Will likely get the load of the bigger load of the carries amongst the running back group. So I think it's possible that Jonathan Brooks could rip off a really good season and be that offensive MVP. Defensive MVP, Jalen Ford. Jalen Ford should have been the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year last year, arguably. I think he was probably the Defensive Player of the Year for the Texas Longhorns last year. He most definitely was. This dark horse right here might surprise y'all. Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins is my defensive MVP dark horse for 2023. By all accounts, Alfred Collins, if you listen to this show or you watch any of my clips on TikTok, there's probably about 10 of them on Alfred Collins. I talk about Alfred Collins just a ridiculous amount of time for a guy that has not broken out at Texas, really, has never started at Texas. Maybe he started a few games the sophomore year, not 100% sure, but hasn't had a wildly successful career at Texas to this point. All the talk out of fall camp is that Alfred Collins has figured it out. The light has come on. We will see. He's got the type of ability where he could be such a disruptor in the run game, such a pressure guy in the pass game, that he could be that type of guy that could sneak up and win 2023 Texas Longhorn Defensive MVP. 2023 Special Forces MVP. We talked about the Special Forces group last week. One of the most overlooked yet important groups in football. I think your MVP here will be Keelan Robinson. It's a guy that returns kicks. It's a guy that lines up on punt block. It's a guy that's a gunner on the punt team. Keelan Robinson is going to have a lot of opportunities to make a lot of plays in the Special Forces game. And I just think he's the guy. He's on the field too much. There's some other really good ones. I think Xavier Worthy may have a shot. Dark horse here is Bert Auburn, place kicker. He's already proven he can make some clutch field goals. Made a really long 49-yarder against Alabama in week 2 last year to take the lead late against Alabama. I think he's got the kind of potential where, he could win some games for Texas this year. 2023 Offensive Newcomer of the Year for the Texas Longhorns. I think you got to go with A.D. Mitchell here. And what I consider a newcomer is someone that's never played on the field for Texas on that side of the ball. So a lot of guys, there'll be a lot of players that have waited their turn and will step up and play in either one of these categories and will probably do well. But I'm talking about guys that this is their first time to play at the University of Texas. A.D. Mitchell, Georgia transfer. I think he's going to have one hell of a year. I think a dark horse. I think I got 2 dark horses on this, really, honestly. I think a guy that if you look at the depth chart is probably right behind A.D. Mitchell. Isaiah Nair. I think he's a guy that a lot of Texas fans even haven't talked about a lot since last year when he got hurt. I think he's a guy that could step up. But my legit dark horse pick is C.J. Baxter, running back, freshman running back out of Florida. Big kid, fast kid. By all accounts, has picked up the playbook, understands his assignments on pass protection, can execute his assignments on pass protection. It's one thing to be able to know where you're supposed to be. It's another thing to be able to physically handle that type of work. By all accounts, he can do it. I think he might have an opportunity to be the offensive newcomer of the year for the Texas Longhorns. 2023 defensive newcomer of the year. This one to me is kind of tough because there's some new faces that are in the program. We don't really know what this depth chart's going to look like. Sure, there's got to be a depth chart today. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, or possibly, yeah, there's got to be a depth chart. There's a depth chart today. It just hasn't been released. They've got a mock game tomorrow. You have to have a depth chart to play a mock game. Anyhow, I think safety Jalen Catalon will be the defensive newcomer of the year for the Texas Longhorns this season. Transfer from Arkansas, all SEC guy. Been banged up a lot during his career. I think if he can stay healthy, this dude hits like a Mack truck, man. I went back and watched some of his highlights there at Arkansas, and that's why he was hurt all the time, because he just likes to knock the piss out of people. I'm looking forward to watching Jalen Catalon play. Dark horse. And I made this dark horse pick before I even knew about something we'll talk about a little later. My dark horse is Ant Hill, freshman linebacker, number 1 linebacker in the country last season. That guy, not only do I feel like he can excel at the weak side linebacker position, but he is a pass rushing machine by all accounts. He's going to get an opportunity to come off the edge. And coming off the edge is how you can make some money, right? That's how you can make some big plays. Guys that get off the edge well cause fumbles. They obviously get sacks. They cause pressures enough that quarterbacks make terrible throws. They recover fumbles. A legit guy that can get off the edge is a big, big problem for offenses. And he's going to get that role at least some of the time this season. That's my dark horse for defensive newcomer of the year. And that's our superlative so far for this year. We might expand this at another time. I don't know. We definitely want to do a postseason version of this where we have some awards, and man, I've been thinking about, like, no shit, actually sending some awards to the winners of these awards straight to campus. Let the University of Texas athletic program pass those things out. I think that'd be kind of cool. So we're looking into that. The Big 12, folks, is like never going to recover from Texas and Oklahoma leaving the conference. That is painfully clear at this point. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark was at some Texas Tech function early this week, speaking in front of I don't know who. I'm assuming that Joey McGuire was there, because Brett Yormark addressed Joey McGuire from the podium during a public speech to let him know that he was going to be at DKR the day after Thanksgiving, and that he wanted him to take care of business like they did up in Lubbock last year. And Texas fans reacted to that. I reacted to it. The first time I saw it on Twitter, it's called quoting it now, but I retweeted it with a quote. Something to the effect of, yeah, that's not a conflict of interest. I mean, I can't think of another time. And if someone has another specific time, I'd love to hear it. I cannot think of another time where a commissioner of a conference openly publicly made comments favoring one conference member over another. Again, I mean, it's like it's just something you don't see. I mean, you see parents like openly root for one sibling over the other more than you see this, which is I've never seen it. If you've seen it, let me know. I'll check it out. I mean, I'm open to it. I'm open that it's happened. I just cannot believe it's happened. I totally get it. Like, I get they're upset with Texas. I get they're upset with Oklahoma. And I could totally see a commissioner of a sports conference, an athletic conference, saying to a coach within that conference, hey, man, go get these guys from another conference. Make sure you take care of business. In 4 years, if Texas Tech was playing Texas in Austin or in Lubbock, whatever, or on a neutral site, I could totally see the Big 12 commissioner saying, make sure y'all take care of business against Texas. So to me, it's not the fact that it's about Texas. I don't even care about that. I mean, we know Tech wants to beat Texas. We know everybody wants to beat Texas. We get that. We understand that. As unhealthy as that obsession is amongst a lot of these fan bases, but we get it. And I even understand why. I just wish the fan bases from these schools would stop pretending they don't understand why and stop making up lies about why it really is. But to say that about a member of a conference that you reside over is just like the epitome of conflict of interest and just unprofessional. A lot of Texas fans came out of the woodworks and started talking about, this just proves that there's a conspiracy against Texas. It's going to be real tough for the referees not to, all the referee shit. There's always fans crying about officials. And I do not like officials, and I frequently criticize officials on the show, but I feel like I'm fair about it. I don't just look at instances where, Texas, I felt like got screwed. I'll point out any instance. I'll point out when I think the other team playing against Texas got screwed. That's how bad I hate officials. But there are some Texas fans that just really, and I'm not going to lie, there have been some calls made against Texas the last decade or so, and some of them are pretty damn ridiculous. There was a defensive holding call several years back against Oklahoma State that directly led to us losing a game against Oklahoma State. There was a game, it might have been against Oklahoma State as well. Texas was on the road. There was a review of a spot or something on the play, and the officials noticed during the review that there was a penalty against Texas. So they threw a penalty flag and enforced a penalty against Texas on a play that they were reviewing for something completely different. I'm pretty sure you can't do that. And there's been several other plays. I mean, I could sit here for a while and rattle that off, but I legitimately do not feel like there is a conspiracy against Texas. A lot of Texas fans will point to the Oklahoma State game last year, and I've already covered that on this show. I covered it last week. I do not think that was just Texas not having any discipline. That wasn't a conspiracy against Texas. Nonetheless, Texas fans come out of the woodwork and they're pissed. And they're sure that the referees are going to hurt us. The officials are going to hurt us. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see. And then because the Texas fans come out and respond, the Texas haters come out of the woodworks. You got guys saying, "Oh, he's just doing what's in the best interest of his conference." Texas is in his conference right now. I guarantee you what's in the best interest of any conference commissioner's conference is for the commissioner not to actively root for one team in the conference over another team in the conference. So this idea that this was all just trying to paint the Big 12 in a good light is fucking absurd. All it really did was embarrass him and really embarrass the conference that it's so dysfunctional that they are already actively rooting for the two teams that are leaving the conference to lose games. Got other folks responding. Texas left the conference for dead by secretly plotting to move to the SEC. So fuck them, right? Well, first of all, that's the longest damn secret I've ever heard of. I mean, it's been what? 2 years? It's been over 2 years since Texas and Oklahoma announced that they were leaving the Big 12 to head to the SEC. The other thing is Brett Yormark wasn't even the Big 12 commissioner when that happened. So why the hell would he care? Didn't happen under his watch. It's also interesting to me that a program that has supposedly been irrelevant for 20 years, and those are like quotes. I mean, I have seen that. You go on Twitter, opposing fan bases will just come onto your tweets that have nothing to do with their teams to tell you that Texas has been irrelevant for 20 years. So how does a program that's been irrelevant for 20 years leave a conference for dead? You guys got to get consistent. It's either Texas is irrelevant and nobody gives a shit about them, or is Texas so relevant that they left a conference for dead by leaving? I think if you guys are being true to yourselves, if you guys are being honest with yourselves, you know the answer. Deep down, you know the answer. I saw another guy say, this is like a band saying to the current crowd that they're playing in front of that they're the best crowd they've ever played in front of. They basically hinting at the fact that because the commissioner was speaking in front of Texas Tech people, and again, it was some kickoff event. I don't know exactly what that is. My understanding is the entire audience was Red Raiders. It could have been like a booster type deal or something. I really don't know. Basically, since he was talking to Red Raiders, it's okay for him to say that he wants those Red Raiders to go beat a team in his conference. And then again, that's just the same thing as a band saying, we love you, Michigan, or we love you, Detroit. You guys are the best crowd we've ever had. What? That is not the same thing at all. I mean, not even close. At best, this guy's comments were not well thought out, and I a lot of people think he's being calculated, and whatever. There was some video I saw. He knows what he's doing, type of deal. Man, I'm not sure he did, because I can't imagine that he sat down when he decided to, discover and talk, think about what he was going to talk to Red Raider fans about. Can't imagine he sat down, had that thought, well, it'll be cool if I tell them you guys beat Texas. And then actually went through with it. And I mean, surely that had to be like a spur of the moment thing, right? I give people the benefit of the doubt probably too much. At worst, he has an obvious bias against current members of his conference, and he's 100% comfortable letting it be known in public. Which, again, if that's the case, it's hard to fault Texas fans for not thinking that's very cool. I mean, the Big 12 does hire the officials that official their games. The Big 12 does make the schedules that these teams play. If the leader of the conference is saying things like that, it's hard to imagine that other people throughout the ranks of the Big 12 and the groups that help support the Big 12 aren't thinking the same thing. And it's not crazy necessarily to think that some of those people, humans are humans, folks. I mean, it's not crazy to think that some of those people that can affect certain things might affect certain things. Again, I don't feel like there's necessarily a conspiracy against Texas. There have been several plays though over the last decade that have just been really bad officiating. So I can see the other side. My whole response to Texas fans that have this conspiracy theory about officials is, just go out and whip their ass so bad the officials can't. It's like impossible for them to sway the outcome of the game without it just being blatantly obvious that that's what happened. So in honor of Brett Yormark openly rooting against Texas, a team in his own conference, I hope Texas drops 100 points on Texas Tech. I hope Steve Sarkisian never stops scoring against Big 12 opponents. I I hope that Steve Sarkisian does to the rest of the Big 12 what Bob Stoops did to the rest of the Big 12 in 2008 and just absolutely clown stomps every last one of them. That Oklahoma team scored 60 plus points, I think 5 weeks in a row. I'm not a vindictive person, but all you Big 12 dipshits, y'all are, I don't know. Anyways, fall camp notes, depth chart, it's got to come, right? We got to be seeing a depth chart soon. They have a mock game tomorrow. During part of that mock game is game situation. So these guys got to know where they stand on the depth chart. So I guarantee you Steve Sarkisian and staff have a depth chart. The players have probably pretty much known where they fall on that for probably most of this week, to be perfectly honest. But we've gone through all the player position groups. The only one that I've just really maybe don't have a good handle on is the secondary. There's been enough chatter out of the fall camp, the reporting that's come from the fall camp this season, where a lot of it has been about the defensive backfield. Well, apparently lots of players making plays, a lot of younger players making plays. So I don't really know what the secondary is going to look like. My gut tells me you're going to see Ryan Watts at the boundary corner. You're going to see Terrence Brooks as the field corner. You're going to see Jalen Catalon at one of the safety positions, and you're going to see Jaron Thompson at one of the safety positions. But I think a guy like Manny Muhammad, freshman out of South Oak Cliff, Texas, Dallas School District, I mean, that guy has been a turnover-causing machine in this fall camp. And all reports suggest he's like at least the third guy. He can play both corner positions. He's at least the third guy. He's going to get to play a lot. And then you got, at the secondary positions, you got guys like, and I think Jahdae Barron will be the star nickel guy. But at safety, you got that Williams kid from Louisiana that's had a really good camp. Michael Taff, who played a lot last season. Katon Crawford. There's just a lot of talented secondary guys. Jalen Gilbo. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have already played some football that are fighting for all those positions. So it'll be, and then I mean, you got the transfer from Wake Forest, cornerback. That's really the only one I don't have a good handle on. I think the linebackers, you're going to see Jalen Ford at middle linebacker, obviously, and then I think you're going to see. Oh man, I just went blank. We'll come back to it. Defensive line, you're going to see Baron Sorrell at one edge. You're going to see Ethan Burke at the other edge. And you're going to see a lot of Justice Finkley, kind of the third man, like Manny Muhammad's the third man at the cornerback position. You're going to see a lot of Justice Finkley. You're going to see Alfred Collins, I think, at one defensive tackle position. Tavondre Sweat at the other, sort of the nose guy, the middle interior guy. David Benda, I think, will end up being the starter at the weak side linebacker position. Offensively, Quinn Ewers is going to be the quarterback. Malik Murphy is going to be the second string quarterback. To the chagrin of tons of dumbasses that thought Arch Manning was going to come and start at the University of Texas as a freshman, he will be the third string quarterback headed into week one. Running back, you're going to have Jonathan Brooks. Tight end, you're going to have JT Sanders. Slot, you're going to have Jordan Whittington. You're going to have X at one wide receiver, and you're going to see A.D. Mitchell at the other wide receiver position. Offensive line, I think DJ Campbell probably won that job at right guard, so I think you're going to see Cole Hudson out. You're going to see Jake Majors at center. You're going to see Hayden Connor at left guard. You're going to see man, my mind went blank again. You're going to see Christian Jones at the right tackle, and you're going to see Kelvin Banks at the left tackle position. But again, I think Campbell did enough to win the starting position at right guard. Big freshman coming in. His name escapes me. I think he's from Florida. Looks like he may end up being the second string left tackle. Neto Umeozulu looks like he's penciled in at the left guard position. Cole Hudson or Campbell at that center backup position. And then Cole Hudson backing up right guard. I'm trying to remember that cat's name. He came in with that big freshman class with DJ Campbell, with Kelvin Banks. Should have wrote it down, y'all. Can't remember his name. He'll end up being the right tackle backup, I believe. So not a whole lot of difference. When we went through all the position groups, we started trying to predict who would be where. I think it's going to end up being pretty much what we thought, except for maybe in that secondary, because that secondary is, again, full of really good players. Rough news out of fall camp. So Texas has made it all the way this far through fall camp without any kind of serious injuries. There's been some illnesses. There's been some guys that have kind of been banged up. Mo Blackwell, a guy who was contending for that weak side linebacker position, apparently tore his MCL at some point earlier this week. These are all unofficial reports. The University of Texas has not officially said what his injury is, other than it's a knee injury. And they have no definite timeline on his recovery, but there's been a lot of reports that they think he's only going to be out a few weeks. The initial report I saw said 3 weeks, and I thought to myself, well, if he tore his MCL, how can he be back in 3 weeks? I know medicine has probably gotten better since I was playing football. And I think it probably depends on the severity of the tear as well, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they can go in there arthroscopically, clean up some stuff, and maybe that's how they do it today. I don't know. We wish the best for Mo Blackwell. Apparently, Mo Blackwell's a guy that came in as a safety, ate his way out of safety, but is a big hitter, good in coverage, talented kid. Finally getting a shot, right? And obviously, I mean, we talked about it before, man. It's got to be tough on these kids to put in the amount of work that they put in and then have it just kind of stripped away by an injury. Because even if it's not a season-ending injury, it's tough to get yourself back into the rotation and get yourself back to the place where you're ready to play. And then you've already got guys that have been contributing, so it's tough for coaches to just throw guys back in the mix after those types of deals. We wish the best for Mo Blackwell. Hopefully it'll be a minor deal, and he can get back to seeing some action and contributing in just a few weeks. That'd be great. Great for him. Great for Texas. But I think that's gonna allow Ant Hill to get on the field a little earlier at that weak side linebacker position, and less of a I think we already knew we were going to see Ant Hill in pass rushing situations, but that his development probably hasn't come along as quickly, just from a will perspective. I think you're going to see him have to get forced into that. And the cool thing about a guy like Ant Hill is he may not know exactly what he's supposed to be doing, but he's always doing what he's not supposed to be doing full speed. And those types of guys have instincts and the athleticism to catch up if they're wrong. Five keys for Texas success in 2023. I think we probably talked about these before. And they've probably changed a little bit. I definitely know we talked about these at the end of last year as we were kind of wrapping up the season and talking about the season ahead. These are really in no particular order. Quinn Ewers has to distribute the ball. Quinn Ewers has to be able to play within this offense, get the ball to all these playmakers. There are just way too many guys that are very talented for him just not to get the ball to one of them. I think last year he had a tendency to want to make the deep play, make the big play happen. And I think because of that, he let himself get in situations that he probably didn't need to. He could have got rid of the ball, got the ball to somebody, right? With that talented of an offensive skill position group, there is going to be guys open. And they may not be open down the field. And I guarantee you, if Quinn Ewers starts hitting the ball down the field consistently, teams are going to back up and they're going to make that a thing that doesn't happen. Or they're going to make it a thing that they try to make not happen. And he's going to have to find guys underneath and get those guys the ball. You talk about a lot of things like in the progression mode, and it seems to be that second year you seem to have the biggest growth, or that second reiteration, right? You talk about just games themselves. This first game for everybody's probably going to be sloppy, and you'll see a ton of improvement between game 1 and game 2. Any kind of freshman that's competing in athletics usually sees a huge growth in their development between year 1 and year 2. Football teams in general, they seem to grow, if they're going to grow, between year 1 and year 2. So we're in year 2 of Quinn Ewers as the starting quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. We'll have to hope that all the reports are true. All accounts are he's taken a different approach to his role. He's tried to become more of a leader. He's obviously changed his body a lot, from his hair to his build. He's taken a lot of things seriously now that he probably didn't last year. And that doesn't necessarily equate to the field, or equate to progress on the field, but it could. He's learned the playbook. Sounds like he's done a better job of just saying, I need to be better this year. So I hope we see that. We're going to need to be as successful as people think Texas can be in 2023. The expectation is high, folks. The expectation for the Texas Longhorns in 2023 is to win the Big 12 for sure. That's like bottom. Win the Big 12. win 10, 11 games and win the Big 12. That is the expectation. And it's not just with Texas fans. And there's actually probably more Texas fans that are a little more leery about their expectations than the rest of the college football world. I mean, every single pundit you see now is Texas is back. Texas is back. So for them to do that, Quinn Ewers is obviously going to have a good year. Number two thing Texas got to do, number two key is Sark's got to stick with the running game, especially in games where they have the lead late. We've seen Sark sort of abandon the running game in times where it just did not make sense to abandon the running game. I'm talking in games where the running game was actually really good. And for whatever reason, just stopped doing it. Games where Texas has had big leads, they just stopped doing it. The running game is something that you just kind of just have to keep doing. It's not going to always work. I will never forget the Texas and TCU game last year, where early on in that game, both teams wanted to run the ball, and neither team could run the ball. One team that kept running the ball ended up busting a long run for a touchdown, and it wound up being the difference in the game. Oklahoma State game last year, the offensive line was doing well at the beginning of the game. Roschon Johnson, Bijan Robinson had both ripped off long touchdown runs. I think those guys had 29 combined carries in the first half, or excuse me, in the whole game. 17 of those came in the first half. 12 carries for those guys in the second half. In a game they were leading by double, by double digits at halftime. So it was a problem for Steve Sarkisian last year. I think the good news is we saw him also in the Baylor game, last game of the season. Once he saw that Quinn Ewers was struggling, he took the ball out of Quinn Ewers' hands and put it right in Rojo and right in Bijan's hands. And that offensive line responded, and they just flat ran smooth over Baylor for the second half of that football game. I think they scored touchdowns on 2 drives in a row, exclusively running the football, and then they got the ball back again and ran the clock out running the football exclusively. So from a running game perspective, they took it over. I'm hoping that with this improved offensive line, another year of those guys together, another year in the system, another year in the strength and conditioning program, that they're going to be a menace in the running game. If Texas can get that, it takes a little pressure off Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers can be more of that distribute the ball type of guy. And then we get the opportunity to see those big plays over the top. Defense needs more pressure, especially off the edge. I know they led it's not really pressure, it's sacks. Texas led the nation in pressures last season, was 40th-ish in sacks total last season. So a lot of missed opportunities to finish and create sacks. I think if this Texas defense can continue the pressure, but can also get some pressure off the edges and keep quarterbacks in the pocket and give them more to think about while they're trying to scramble around and make plays, I think that's going to make life on the back end of the defense a lot easier. They'll convert some of those sacks. They'll force some turnovers that way. It's going to be super important for the Texas defensive line, the front four, to be able to get some pressure. Defense has got to get off the field on third down. And we've talked about this multiple times on this show. Third and long has been a curse for the University of Texas on defense. They got to figure it out. They got to figure, and I call third and long like 3rd and 6 or more. That's hard to convert. Shouldn't happen at like a 60% clip, and it seems to have against the University of Texas. And then finally, the defense has got to create more turnovers, and the special forces need to create more explosives. I think those are the 5 spots where if Texas can improve in those areas, they have a really good shot to have a really, really special season. And then I got a bonus. They got to avoid injuries. And I know there's nothing really you can do about that. You could argue, your strength and conditioning and those types of things matter, which I think they've probably done a better job of that. I think this team is probably stronger, more ready to hold up against, the rigor of a college football season, probably than they've been in a really long time. I think that's the reason you've seen them be able to go through camp without a lot of serious injuries, and really without a lot of little naggy injuries. I mean, there's been a few guys that have been bumped up a little bit. Most of the people that have not practiced because of illness, not because of injury. Just a couple, actually not even a couple, of random college football. I saw today that Herbie did his awards or did his kickoff show or whatever he does, and that he said he's taking the under on Texas winning 9.5 wins this season. I'm not going to bash the guy for it. I think Herbie's been a proponent of Texas football for a really long time. I think that Herb Street is a guy that, back during the glory years of, the 2000s for Texas, was really high on Texas. I don't think he has a bias against Texas. I do think it's interesting with so many pundits, so many of these national guys really expecting a lot out of Texas, and then Herbie comes along and says, I'm taking the under on 9.5 wins. Not sure on that one. I mean, I feel like, I'm not saying it's impossible. There's certainly scenarios where Texas could win under 9.5 games. And really what that's saying is 10 games. But man, I think there would have to be some sort of catastrophic stuff happen to keep Texas from winning 10 games this season. Just looking at the schedule. Join us Tuesday. We'll be talking about the Rice game. We'll be talking about just some random college football stuff that happened over the weekend. Maybe we'll have some recruiting updates. You never know. We'll go over our Big 12 predictions. We haven't done that yet. And then we were supposed to have Nash Talks Texas Monday night. I couldn't get it done. Nash Talks Texas will be with us on Tuesday night, 6 p.m., live on YouTube. We're going to talk some alternate unis and Rice and whatever else I want to talk about. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Again, you can find me Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at Horn Takes. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your comments, questions, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good weekend. Football's back. Hook 'em.